So here is where we talk about next level storytelling. We know the basics, we've understood the basics. Now let's get on to the next level of storytelling. There's this book that I had read some time back. The father of the protagonist is a locksmith at a museum, but back home in their apartment, he's building a wooden model of the city that they live in. No, he's not trying out any new hobbies. He's building that model because his 3-year-old daughter, the protagonist, has lost her vision and he wants her to know the city even before she sets foot outside. There is no long lists of directions, there is no leading her every step of the way. He's just creating a world where she feels and discovers the city all by herself. Now, why am I telling you this story? I'm not telling you this story because I loved the book, which I did, but I'm telling you this story because this is what great storytelling is all about. You don't tell people where to go. You just give them a world which they can navigate for themselves. Think about the difference between a command and a story. A command is rigid. Go here, do this, believe that. A story is a map. Walk through it, find your own way. When the father carves out that wooden city, he's not giving knowledge to his daughter. He's creating an experience that lets the daughter discover the city all by herself. She runs her little fingers through the miniature streets, she feels the miniature buildings, and she discovers the city all by herself. That's how great stories work. Great stories don't instruct, they immerse. They don't dictate, they guide. A strong pitch doesn't force the audience to agree. It lets them in, it invites them in, and lets them connect the dots in their own way. Then come the emotions. In this story, the father does not tell his daughter how to navigate the streets. He doesn't stand there dictating each turn to her according to his likes and dislikes. As a professional out there telling your brand story, you don't tell people how to feel. You just give them an experience, you just give them a world, and they decide how they want to feel about it. Don't push emotion. Just set the stage for the emotion to emerge. Just like a play, imagine yourself as an audience. You're watching a play, you're watching a movie. You decide whether you want to cry or be sad or be happy or laugh at what point. I have found children laughing during horror movies. I mean, they wanted us to be scared, but children are laughing when they are watching the best horror movies that are there in the world. So when you give that space to the audience to decide, your story is a hit. Now let me tell you, this is exactly where most brands fail. They lecture instead of immerse. They talk instead of show. They tell instead of reveal. Imagine if the father had just sat down and described the entire city to his daughter. What would happen then? The daughter would forget, she would doubt herself, she would hesitate at every step. But just because she discovered it by feeling and exploring, she internalized it. Great storytelling creates reality that feels real even before it ever becomes real. So when the time comes for action, there's no doubt, just certainty. Your audience, your customer knows that this is the brand I want. This is the brand I want to make a part of my life. Your audience, your customer is sure about your brand. Consistency. I also see a lot of consistency in the father's approach. A few years later, when the World War comes to their city and they have to move to another city, the father builds another wooden model of the new city for his daughter. He goes out there on the streets, counting his steps and then coming back and applying the math to his creativity. The daughter discovers the city the same way she had done it a few years ago as a kid. She runs her fingers through the streets, the miniature streets of the model. She feels the buildings and discovers the city. So even as the city changed, the environment changed, the core focus remained the same. As a professional, as an entrepreneur, if you're out there rebranding, changing the colors of your brand, the look of your brand, the design of your brand, even the name of your brand, let the core messaging, the core focus remain consistent. If the voice behind a story keeps shifting, if the structure keeps bending to convenience, if the meaning keeps changing depending on the moment, the listener stops trusting it. Now, I'm not saying that you have to remain the same and get stuck. Consistency is not repetition, it's clarity. A story must remain steady so that when someone steps into it, they feel secure. They have to trust the ground beneath their feet. That's what allows the daughter to move forward without fear. Your story has to be as solid as the intention behind the wooden city. So when you start off on your story, ask yourself, am I giving directions or am I creating a world that people can navigate?